Because the thing is that Sri Aurobindo says in some chapter in The Secret of the Veda, it looks as if every hymn relates to a certain experience and period in the life of a rishi. You know, the hymn is even a means of making a certain progress, maybe. But he also says, because the mantra, no, the uses of the mantra, they have, for example, nobody goes even into such details. No, people would study the Yoga Sutras and they will know, you know, asana, pranayama, and all this dharana and samadhi, dhyana. But if you look at the Veda close, you have endless terms, you know, and nobody is trying to see at the system there in a way also, because they also have a system of terminology. And for example, for the mantra, no, Brahma is the basic word. Brahma, and how could you imagine the word Brahma in the Veda means mantra, which later means the creator God in masculine gender, Brahma, but in the Veda it is in neuter gender, which is exactly the Brahman of the Upanishad. The Vedic term Brahman is the supreme, the eternal, the absolute in the Upanishad. In the Veda it's a name for the mantra. What is that mantra then? No, you know, that soul, that eternal which is speaking actually. Because the whole creation is then seen, what I told you, the whole creation is the yajna. And the yajna which the humans want to do is actually to connect with the universal. It is like when you say later, yoga means yuj. It is the application, but it's also the union with the supreme. So the yajna is also uniting with the cosmic and even seeing the transcendent behind, because the cosmic is nothing else than the transcendent doing his yajna. The supreme manifests the cosmos as his yajna. That would be the idea. And in that way, there will be so many terms like the Brahma for the mantra, but there will be no mantra itself will come, manma will come. And then I talked about the thi, the mati, all the different words for thought. And you have also many words for the word. Gear. Gear is, you know, I'm always a bit laughing and joking because in English, the same root for gear, greeting, Gruß in German, you know. Gratifying, you know. What is the gi? When the rishi speaks the gear, which is in feminine, it is like, you know, we all assemble here and today somebody has birthday or something and I'll give a special speech on him, no? I don't know how you call it. There is a term in English for that also, you know. So in that way, the rishi is doing that to the god. The god is the guest. He is the main topic, so to say. Then he calls it gear, but he also calls it ukta. And he calls it su-ukta, like the hymn is called su-ukta, that which is well spoken. So ukta is the utterance. You look again, even that ukta, it's uj, to bring up. To bring out from where? From within. That's the Brahman. But then when Sri Aurobindo calls it, he says the Brahman is the cosmic soul, or it is the thought of the soul. It's already the expression of the soul, but it is not formulated in thought. Then it has to become manma. So, but what I want to say in part of the hymn, so there are certain terms which want to say, I speak now like a prayer because I want to connect with my inner. And then when this inner manifests, the hymn actually will talk about now the experience, what's going on. He's communing with that to which he talks. But then there are these other hymns, they are called stuti or stotra. Sri Aurobindo says they are affirmations. Because even the root stu means to be stabilizing, you know, standardizing, stabilizing, making it firm. So that means when you have through the word you can create an experience. And when you have had this experience, to make the experience more real, you affirm it again by the word. So that is this idea, no, in the ancient paradigms and in the mantra paradigm. The mantra makes things more real and true. The word embodies the inner. Whereas in the later age, what is called the rational age, words become so unimportant. The mind dominates and the mind is using words just, you know, random. The word itself has no soul anymore. Whereas in the Veda, the word and the sound is the soul, is the vag, the logos. You see, like what they call in Greek.
Stuti is the affirmation.
Yes.
Of the realization.
Of your experience, right. Stuti is a kind of what you call a psalm, a praise, because certain qualities of the gods which you want to realize or you have realized, you affirm them, so to say. What they call in psychology since the 60s, 70s, affirmation, actually.
So would this, so what we were reading about Indra,
Yes, of Agni here, you mean, right?
would that be a stuti? So
That hymn which we are dealing now, you mean? Right. I would call it a stuti because he's talking about the functions of the gods, so to say, you know. But then he makes them more real to himself. You know, that would be the idea, so in that sense. And then I thought when you take the hymn, but then there is, of course, many hymns, there's a lot of ritual language. So there is as if, and there's an audience, no? So people think they did a sacrifice, and while the sacrifice happened, they created this hymn because they believed without the mantra, the hymn, the sacrifice has no real value. You know? It's also interesting, I thought at lunch today, because I'm always mentioning the Tantra, then people think when I compare the Veda to the Tantra, it is that partner yoga which is so, you know, fashionable and abroad. I don't mean that. I mean, yes, that they recognize the Shakti, the evolutionary, the Kundalini power, but also that they use mantra, Tantra and Yantra. You see, so, and you could say, I was thinking at lunch, probably the Yantra in the Vedic ritual will be the Yajna, the altar, the Vedi, no? And you know what they are doing. They are building huge altars in the shape of a bird which represents the whole cosmos. Even the number of pricks relates to certain digits of the moon. Like in the Tantra, the Panchadashi mantra relates to the first day of the moon up to the full moon, you know. So it's, you see, all of this is, so to say, there in the Vedic hymns. So what I want to say...
Yantra is the physical
Yes, right. And of course, because yam means also application, but also control. It means both, in a sense, you know, where you can control the powers, so to say. You give them a field where they can, so to say, a frame which limits them, but also which stabilizes them in a way. And of course, in the later Tantra, also you yourself become that yantra. Your body becomes the yantra. So, but in the Vedic hymns, I can really conceive that there was some festival was going on. It was a special occasion, you know. And then the Rishi will create this hymn, and it does not mean it is not his personal thing. It can, you know, because the life was like that. He is the Brahma, the one who has that in him. Because Brahmana means in the Veda, he has that word. You know, that's a Christian terminology. Even in esoteric circles, he has the word. Do you have the word? You know, and in the Veda, I'm always telling, actually, if you have no word, you have no soul. You are not in contact with your soul. Because if you have nothing to say, that means this is not there. Because the soul wants to express itself. That is the idea, you know. So you could think in so many ways about that, you know, which is totally opposite, no, from the later rational minds. They will say words are unimportant. No, you have a thought and whatever word you use. But in this category, in this way of thinking, in this paradigm, they write about it also people who have studied linguists deeper. The word itself, the language which you use will inspire your thinking. You cannot write as inspired in every language then maybe. Even if you speak 2-3 tongues, if you write certain things, you would prefer maybe that tongue. So the word has, also the language itself, has a different kind of qualities, no, and colors. It's a vehicle for the thought actually. Of course, you can say it's the thought is determining it and it needs certain structure and container, but it's actually more, because the language itself inspires the thought. So there is a kind of very close relationship between word and mind. And it's interesting, in the Upanishad, there is, I don't know, remember, I think the Chandogya, they talk about that. And then, of course, you can very clearly see that Vedic intuitive mind, you know, the mythological mind also has passed into the rational mind, because they will say speech and mind are a couple, but the mind is, so to say, prior. Then the word has not that power anymore. The mind dominates. And that goes on more and more, then finally, you know, that everything, and Sri Aurobindo says, actually, finally we become rational thinkers, which the realities of the soul have become pure concepts to us. We conceptualize about the reality, and we even quarrel among our concepts, which are not based anymore on an inner experience, you see. So there's a total kind of a different world behind this poetic language of the rishis of the past. So meaning it's a direct expression. And so, as I say, it could relate to some public, huge happening, like here in a temple festival or a big sacrifice at a certain junction in the year. There could be it could be the equinox, or it could be the solstice, or it could be the first new moon in that nakshatra. Many times they will say Agni has come out in front of the dawn. So usually they say they burn a fire in front of the dawn. Sri Aurobindo is talking about that. Why should you make a fire when the light already has come? So what is that fire? For him it's the inner fire. Symbolic, it brings the dawn. But do you know that there is a period where when you look at the beach here, for example, I don't know how many times or only once a year, the full moon rises in front of the dawn. And that happens not many times a year. It's a special constellation. So it could be also that thing. When the moon manifests in front of the dawn, that is a special occasion also. Because the moon represents some kind of a spiritual mind, you see. Also. So meaning it could relate astrologically, sociologically to a certain happening which always has something to do with the lights in the year and the cosmos. And at the same time, the rishi takes this, so to say, this opportunity or this metaphor to, communicate with this in his own experience. So in that way, you could say, many times the hymn has this it's an opening, and he talks to the god, and he explains different qualities, and especially with the Agni hymns in our sessions, I don't remember if you remember, Avantika, but I mentioned sometimes it feels it is just the start, That hymn is not the final thing. Some hymns, they give you like a whole thing, maybe you could call, especially in Upanishad, but some hymns, it is the kindling of the fire. It is actually a new manifestation of a light. There's an opening. Sri Aurobindo talks in his yoga of an inner opening. And you could say that hymn is, so to say, giving you the experience of this inner opening. And then, so to say, life will continue with that new light. So the hymn does not end there, but it ends there because that's what he wants to convey. A new thought has been born, so to say, they will say. Yes. And this would, so to say, and that you would then take up into your life, It's almost like you could say when you study in a Gurukul, or even if you go to school and you study a certain topic, and something happened to you, you have completed something, a base of something. But this is here, of course, in a much more inner revelatory sense, you could say. But you could say they have dealt with these inner realities much more concrete than we are used to, because it was more common to experience that. You could compare it maybe to this: when you travel in the world in general, spiritual matters are very non-existent. When you come to India, actually people still know what is meditation or worship. They still have a link to it. But you could say that gap between the Western materialist world, which has no link at all, and the traditional link of India, it's probably as big from the traditional link to at that time of the Veda, when it was, you could say, then you would say that every priest is a kind of guru who gives Shaktipat or something, who has directly, as I said in the morning, actually the priest has to be a murti. And then at the same time you could say everyone has to be, because the Veda comes even from one period where you feel probably it was not even systematized, you see, that you have to go to the priest to do for you the puja, you see, the ritual. It's much more fluid. But still, as I say, so you have the feeling, and that's why I would say nobody can fully translate the Veda, because everybody picks out something which makes sense to him or her, and many things remain unexplained. And how can you, and that is really true in that sense that the Veda has this multi-layer of meanings. It's encompassing so many things, which we will see with the fire already. But at the same time, they will use many times very neutral terms, In one hymn, like here we see the Vibhu, the Paribhu, it just means the surrounding one. What is that? Literally, no? They will talk about the Prabriti. Prabriti means literally that which you bring in front. And they will say, oh God, foster now my Prabriti. You can say my worship, my offering, but they don't say. They say just what you bring in front. But later he will say at the next mantra, foster my mati, my thought. Then you could feel, it's actually my thought. It is, I have an insight, I have an idea, or I have a wish, or an aspiration. And I bring that to the God that he will take it up, so to say. But then the hymn, very interestingly, is in detail, so to say, explaining the psychology of that whole movement. But in very concrete terms, then for us we don't see the psychology anymore. But once if we see the psychology in this concrete language, we will see no other text has actually explained so deeply in detail the inner life, the spiritual life. It's a very strange thing. And it's quite amazing.